Our principal objective is to try and look to get some resources together that contain oxides, and that would be sort of a heap leach operation. And I was up there a month ago with our geologist, and we did our first reconnaissance, and we found some nice looking outcropping mineralization. It's just a start. We'll get busy with that with some more remote sensing and some more rock geochemistry, but it's a good start. So we feel really excited about the area.
Welcome to those tuning into the Assay TV, where we've managed to catch up with Michael Parker, Executive Director of Solis Minerals. Welcome.
Thanks, Katie. Nice to be here again.
So we actually caught up with you in New York. It's great to see you again, of course. For anyone who hasn't managed to watch that video, can you give us a recap of the company?
Yeah, Solis Minerals was floated in Australia in late 2021, so we have a dual listing in Australia and in Canada. It's a company that's focused on future-facing metals, battery metals, so principally copper and lithium. Since that stage, we've done some exploration principally in Chile and Brazil for copper and lithium, and right now we're focused more in Peru on our key assets there. We developed with a lot of exploration, and they're now at a drill-ready stage.
Excellent, and we'll definitely talk about that right now. You have one of the largest tenement packages in Peru, and you have the recently acquired Canyon project. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we've got more than 60,000 hectares in Peru. As you mentioned, Canyon is our most recent acquisition. It's state, so it's something we've got 100% for ourselves. We looked at Canyon knowing that there was some very distinctive copper oxide resources up there. And we're very good at following the mining registry and looking at tenements that become available. And when we saw there was quite a large contiguous package that had become free, we staked that because our principal objective is to try and look to get some resources together that contain oxides, and that would be sort of a heap leach operation. And I was up there a month ago with our geologist, and we did our first reconnaissance, and we found some nice looking outcropping mineralization. It's just a start. We'll get busy with that with some more remote sensing and some more rock geochemistry, but it's a good start. So we feel really excited about the area. Obviously in the south, we've got sort of 40,000 hectares down there, and that's been our principal focus over the last 3 or 4 years. We have the Este project, Chancho Apalo, and the chocolate project as well. And just to mention in the south, we're exploring in a belt called the Coastal Intrusive Belt, which is an older porphyry belt in Peru. Traditionally, it's been largely ignored by explorers, by the majors, because of two aspects. A, there's a lot of cover. There's a lot of desert and sands that has come off the mountain, so it's difficult to see the rocks. And B, that there was always a concept that whatever you find down there is not very big. And what we're seeing now is that there's two projects that are coming to the fore. There's the Zafranal project, which is 80% owned by Teck. They've recently announced they're close to making a decision. It might be a $2.5 billion investment for a copper porphyry, and it'll be producing 125,000 tons of copper for the first 5 years. So that's a major project. The other one of interest is closer to us is Tia Maria, which is owned by Southern Copper. That's been around for quite a while, but they're now confident that they can start to produce from that mine, that deposit as well. So there's two major projects that are on the go there in our belt, and we're very happy about that and excited. And also Southern Copper is announcing that they're going to develop the Ilo area more with probably a second smelter, expanding refining capacity, expanding Quajoni mine, which is further inland because the products come through Ilo, and also obviously developing Tia Maria. So the whole area is really booming and expanding. And I must add as well, the Anglo-American at Quellaveco have transformed mining in the south of Peru. They've really done a great job with inclusiveness, with service providers, with communities, with the local administration. And the whole area is really picking up strongly, and it's becoming more and more favorable to be a mining company down there.
So let's look at Ilo Este. You've obviously recognised multiple copper porphyries since 2022, and drill permitting is underway. Can you tell us about the targets and what you're expecting to see?
Katie, I first went to Ilo Este in early 2022, and as we British people say, I was gobsmacked or astonished and excited by what I saw on the site. There was exposed porphyry copper mineralization. This area had been drilled previously about 8 years earlier, and some of those holes had intersections over 450 meters at more than 0.1% copper and 0.1 gold, 0.1 grams a ton gold. So it's significant. You don't get those sort of intersections if you're not in the big porphyry system. So obviously that intersection is not at a very interesting ore grade, but it's an indication you're on the margins or on the sort of beginning of something. So we re-evaluated the permit. We did some remote sensing using WorldView 3, and we got some alteration halos, allowed us to focus in on the south of the permit. We reworked some of the magnetic anomalies that had been found previously and managed to identify a specific zone. And we did some mapping there. We found some outcropping copper mineralization on surface in porphyry rocks. And then we did our own IP survey. And the IP survey allows us to detect the presence of discrete particles of sulfides. It's very characteristic to try and identify the existence of porphyry mineralization. And we got a very strong chargeability anomaly, 1,200 meters long, down to 500 meters. And that's our primary drill target. There's nothing else we can do at Este now. We've done a very, very good and professional exploration program. And we've reached the point now where we have to drill that anomaly. And we're very, very happy to have that great chance to do something big there.
It's not a bad place to be, is it? Yeah, having to drill. Let's move on to Chancho Apalo. Permitting is also underway there. You're a very busy company, it sounds. What's been happening over the last few months?
Chancho Apalo is basically very similar geology to Este, except it has some cover. There's some of the deserts I mentioned, and it's very difficult to see the underlying geology. We've done our magnetometry and we've done our IP surveys there as well, so it's not as constrained as Este, where we can actually see the rocks. There we have great geophysical targets. We do have some outcrop that's allowed us to vector in on the best areas. So we've planned 2 zones to drill. There's one area, it's very distinctive, geophysical signature of a porphyry. We'll drill that one. And then adjacent to that, there's another zone which looks more like an IOCG, because in the coastal belt, you can have both types of resources. So both areas are targeted, and as you mentioned, drill permitting is underway. And
similarly, you've got magnetometry survey completed at Cinto. What are we seeing there?
Cinto is not on the coastal intrusive belt. It's further inland on the Cenozoic belt, which contains Toquepala, Cuajone, Quellaveco, so it's a different style of geology. Our Cinto project is about 15 kilometers south of Toquepala, south of the mine, the big porphyry. There's a major fault goes through there, which seems to have enabled the emplacement of Toquepala, Quellaveco, and Cuajone, and we're adjacent to that fault as well. We went there, picked up the ground in early 2022 from a major. They didn't do much there. We then did some basic mapping and some basic stratigraphy, trying to understand the geology, and we found some outcropping copper mineralization, which we don't think is a small isolated occurrence. From the looks of the thing and from our interpretation, it looks like it's an indication of a bigger sort of system. So there we're investigating that to try and understand where might be the sort of more potential area, to try and look at that a little bit more in depth and try and understand where that's come from. The magnetometry helps us do that. We did drone magnetometry. Drone magnetometry is great. It's very fast and it has zero footprint, zero impact. So basically we did that in, I think, August, and we received the results recently, and that shows us where areas that are magnetic are, which indicates more where the intrusive is, and areas of very low magnetism indicate where the alteration is. The copper I mentioned is in a zone of low magnetism, and there's a much bigger zone to the south, which has coincident anomalies from Worldview 3 as well. So we're developing the area to get to the stage where we have defined drill targets and advance it as fast as we can, the most professional we can. Yeah.
Well, sticking with Cinto, but also looking outside of exploration drilling, you obviously poured some ESG efforts into there with an outreach program with the Canberra community. Can you talk us through that a little bit more? And any other efforts, actually, ESG-wise?
Yeah, Cinto is the only project we have where we do interact with communities. The community is very used to mining, and they're very close to Toquepala. They've received benefits from Southern Copper for Toquepala for quite some time. They're very welcoming to us. What we do there is we try and integrate in the community and not cause any disturbances. Our 2 geologists that we have on site are Peruvian guys, and they speak local languages. Though the Charambraya don't speak much Quechua, they're more Spanish speaking, but the 2 guys we have are very, very good at integrating and making the people feel part of the project. We've employed some of the local guys to help us with our actual exploration work. And when we were there, we helped them sort of rebuild their community hall, just in time for their community birthday, which was celebrated, and they sort of inaugurated the whole. As far as the rest of the ESG efforts go, we make a conscious effort to integrate where we work with people. We're very, very good at explaining to stakeholders what we're doing and who we are. And basically what we try and do is leave a good impression of the company. And if people ask us what we're doing, we try and explain in terms of the step-by-step, the exploration process. It's very important not to create huge expectation, because if you don't meet that expectation, then suddenly you become the villain.
Transparency is key.
So transparency and reasonable step-by-step communication, and communication is the key.
Excellent. Well, just to round things up, our investors quite like just some future milestones to be looking out for, especially when you're so busy with multiple projects. What would you like to highlight there?
Well, I think As a summary, I was reading on the train this morning that the BHP, Mike Henry, had mentioned that copper is a huge investment, would need $250 billion worth of investment over the next 10 years. But these messages are very constant from the majors. Copper is becoming harder to find. And as I mentioned, the coastal intrusive belt is an area that's traditionally been overlooked, so the potential for discovery is bigger. We're there. And I like to think we have a lot of expertise in that area. So the company is obviously now focused on copper in the south of Peru and the Canyon project closer to Lima. We are in a process of permitting both Este and Chancho Apalo. We're going for the easiest permits that we can obtain to drill. We believe we can start as early as Q1 2025 or as late as Q2 2025 to drill there. Cinto and Chocolate at the same time, we would progress. Obviously, I mentioned we have to go through a whole stage of processes to get to the drill targeting because you need to put those points on the application. We'll do that work as we go forward and progress as fast as we can to hopefully be having some drilling on those 4 projects during 2025.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing some time with us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Thanks, Katie. A pleasure as always. Thanks.